Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hello again, everybody, and it's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and welcome back to Joe on Joe, the only podcast where I've covered every episode of the Sunbow cartoon, the DIC, even the Extreme, and every issue of the Marvel Real American Hero G.I. Joe comic book, page by page, panel by panel. Now, this week, we've got another amazing episode of You on Joe. That's right, the show is currently in the You on Joe phase, where you are the guest. My listeners, I want you to come on the show and talk about your specific favorite thing about G.I. Joe. I love hearing from you listeners. I know our listeners love hearing from the listeners. It's always great to get a fresh voice in there and learn that something you really loved was also someone else's favorite. So if you want to participate and be a guest, please reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Joe on Joe Pod, or you can send me an email to joeonjoepod@gmail.com and let me know what topic you want to cover. The more specific, the better. I've been hearing from so many of you lately. It's really been great. It's helping grow the show. And also, speaking of growing the show, if you're online, you can please give us a rate and a review on your podcast app. Every time you do that, those podcatchers think this show's more popular than it really is. So they show it to more people and trick them into becoming fans of Joe on Joe. So I want all of you to do that for me. You can also visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/JoeandJoePod, and you can help keep the show afloat. Become a member of Patreon, and you get access to the first 50 episodes of our Joe and Joe Illustrated segment, which is where we covered issues number 1 through 50, only available on the Patreon. Speaking of that, let's also give a lot of love to our great sponsors, the Movies and a Meal podcast. In the beginning of time, the smallest organism gained sentience and thought to itself, I really need a good meal. Then, a bunch of other stuff happened, and finally the Lumiere brothers started showing movies in France. This was all the inspiration that fellow broadcasters Brad, Keith, and Ben needed to combine these two primal needs into the Movies and a Meal podcast. The Movies and a Meal is one of the most casual and relaxing film talk podcasts you could ever listen to. These three friends enjoy a good meal together while talking all about the movies. And not just reviews. They do favorite lists, comparison discussions, genre talks, anything and everything that you can think of. They've even broken their solemn promise inherent in the name and branched out into TV talk. So I love the variety of films they bring to the table. They cover new releases, classics, cult films, often in one episode. It's really a delight to listen to, and it has something for every movie fan out there to enjoy. So if you're looking to grow your podcast library, if you eat meals, and if you've ever seen a movie, then you should give Ben, Keith, and Brad a listen and subscribe to the Movies and a Meal podcast. They've been a great sponsor to this show. I love the Movies and a Meal podcast, and I'd like all of you to love them too. Now, recently I met today's guest, stand-up comic and actor Jason Luna, and it was a very casual, hey, I'd love to have you on the show kind of conversation. And then we started talking about what topic he would want to do. He gave me a list of his favorite things, from which completely randomly I chose the heads of extensive enterprises. Tomax and Xamot, right? Who doesn't love them? They were near the top of his list. But then he tells me that he happens to be a twin himself. So that was it. There was no other option. We had to do this today. We had to talk twins with Jason Luna, Divine Providence. So you're really going to love Jason. He's a charming, funny guy. And if you are in the Los Angeles area, you can see him during the Hollywood Fringe Festival with his musical improv team, Feel Your Feet. That festival is going on right now. It's through the end of June 2023. So act fast. Go onto their page and search for Feel Your Feet, and you can see him in person. He's got, I believe, 3 more performances from when this recording goes live. You can also find him on social media at Jason Luna 1 versus 100. That's 1vs100. And I know what you're thinking. Huh? What kind of social tag is that? Listen to the show and you're going to learn why his social media is that. Now, released as a 2-pack in 1985, Tomax and Xamot came packaged with an oversized laser handguns and a sweet rappelling line with a skyhook where they could grip both sides and slide into action together. They were billed as the leaders of the Crimson Guards. They were actually the first Cobras to have their own private army. They beat Destro and his Grenadiers to the punch. They first appeared during the legendary Pyramid of Darkness miniseries and in the comics, issue number 37. Tomax and Xamot are, to me, one of the absolute great ideas in G.I. Joe, because they're just silly enough to straddle both those worlds of the militaristic and the absurd. Completely absurd. On their face, at least on Xamot's face, see what I did there? The idea of twins with limited psychic connections who feel each other's pain and finish their own sentences dressed like circus acrobats sounds really wild. I get it. But in the cartoon, they themselves were presented very seriously. You know, even when they were leaping out of office windows and, you know, doing flips down the sides of buildings, they were really serious about it. They never laughed. They laughed, but they never broke, you know, got too silly. And that led to a really interesting dichotomy to what they looked like visually. And so I think it helped make that balance really, really well. In the comic book, personally, I never felt that they were given their proper due until we got to the mid-2000s with the IDW Cobra series, which we will discuss some on this podcast today. In the original Marvel run, they seemed to be a little bit more than perfunctory subordinates, and they never really quite were part of the Cobra Command inner circle, at least enough to satisfy this fan's twin itch. And yes, I never could remember which twin was which, but if this helps, think X marks the scar, and then Xamot had the scar, not Tomax. So, let us check in with Jason Luna, certified twin, and we will learn more about the Corsican twins, Tomax and Xamot. So, we're sitting at a barbecue, we're chit-chatting. Jason, you're funny. We're with a bunch of friends who are funny. They're all comedians, they're all actors, they're all improv people, etc., so on and so forth. And my wife is totally teal, as she likes to do. She throws out there that I run a G.I. Joe podcast. And Jason, your face lit up. You were like, G.I. Joe podcast, tell me more. Which, I got to be honest, listeners, that's not usually the reaction. Usually the reaction is, a G.I. Joe podcast. I guess you could tell me more. That's usually the reaction I get when we're at social events. So you were quite excited about it. So we chatted a little bit, and so here you are, Jason Luna. You're like, I want to be on the show. Let's get you on. So welcome to Joe on Joe.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Now, what is your history with G.I. Joe? Like, when did you find it? How old were you? What era was it? Give us a little bit of that origin story so our listeners know where to place you in the timeline that is G.I. Joe.
Sure. So I was in first grade, second grade, somewhere in there in the early 90s. And looking at the timeline, researching for this, I think the show was just about ending technically when I got into it, but it was on just enough. There was some channel that was showing like early morning before school, you get like a couple G.I. Joe episodes. So that was where I got hooked. And, you know, it was just, I love 80s animation in general, but I just love the, you know, the explosions and all the militaristic action. And it was totally. Just so bombastic and silly and fun, especially for a six-year-old or whatever I was. So yeah,
completely.
That was where
now, do you know the difference between what's known as the Sunbow show and then the DIC show? You know how there's like they're different styles of animation. Have you ever seen the difference of those?
No, in fact, the only memories I have are, however I saw them, of the Sunbow Marvel ones. So I'm not even that familiar. I'm not super familiar with the DI.
Good.
But yeah,
don't look any further. Yeah. That's it. No. That's it. That's what I wanted to hear. I'm begging you, don't dig any further. That's what I needed to hear. I wanted to make sure that you are talking about the reruns of the Marvel stuff, which is, that's fantastic. And that's primarily where this show found its footing. So I love it, man. So I love it. So when we were talking, what topic you want to hit on, you gave me a few things of Joe ephemera that you remembered and enjoyed and so on and so forth. And then you happened to mention that you were a twin.
Yes.
Now, it's not the most uncommon thing in the world, but I'm not a twin. You're a twin. And the Cobras famously had a pair of twin brothers. So I said, let's absolutely do Tomax and Xamot.
Yes.
What's your brother's name, Jason?
So obviously my name's Jason. My brother's name is Marcus, and my parents were going for Jason the Argonauts. He's Greek, and Marcus Aurelius, it was Roman. So it's like the merger of the two ancient cultures. So my parents just wanted to sound really sophisticated when explaining our names. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And is he a stand-up as well?
No, this is funny because we can get into this. Me and my brother are classified as mirror twins. It's kind of pseudoscience, but it kind of matches our lives, which is that I'm left-handed, he's right-handed, and on top of the physical split, we have a personality shift. Like, I could be a little reserved, but I'm pretty outgoing, pretty like, look at me. That's why I got to stand up and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus, my brother, he's like literally like the opposite. Like there's times where maybe he wants some attention, but a lot of the times he's the more quiet, reserved, will let me speak for him. So he did not get into stand-up comedy because he doesn't somehow have the same acting impulse that I've had my whole life. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. But, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that either. You literally described Tomax and Xamot. They were mirror twins. They were, left. Yeah. I mean, they were identical, but they were, the way the figures were made were left and right? So they were mirror twins. And while certainly on the cartoon, they were meant to, they were, telepathic a little bit, and they were kind of the same person. In later years in the comic books, they truly made them what you just described. They in the IDW era, they did split them up and go mirror, where one of them did kind of reject the things they were typically up to, and the other one embraced it. So they did turn them into mirror twins eventually in the comics.
Yeah, and I mean even the cartoon, they do that mirror thing where it's like the part on the one side would reflect on the other side, and they'd only paint one side of their face, which
he had a scar. He had a scar. So Xamot had a scar on his face, and Tomax didn't. But you're right. The hair would part. The shoulder armor piece, whatever you would call it, were on opposite shoulders. So if you looked in a mirror, that is what you would look like. That's amazing. So okay, by the end of the show, we're going to figure out if you're Tomax or Xamot. Did you? That's a great question. Yeah. Now, as a kid, did you identify with them like immediately? Like, was it one of those? Oh my gosh, Cobra introduced, these twins. I'm really into them.
No, an interesting side effect of being a mirror twin that Tomax and Xamot don't have is that me and my brother, we get along better now, but when we were formative years, we had a kind of a competitive instinct where we didn't really want to associate with each other. We didn't super get along. We had different sets of friends, different activities, all these things. So, we didn't have that same kind of sort of twin rapport that the characters did.
Yeah. So no psychic bond, you're saying?
No.
If someone were to punch your brother right in the face right now, you wouldn't feel it.
No.
Okay. Well, I hope that we don't find that out. But trial by error. That's how you go through life.
I mean, if my brother gets punched in the face, I'll hear about it because he'll call me. But there's no psychic.
So from a toy perspective, or rather, because you would have been seeing them on the cartoon first, and they were featured heavily on the Sunbow cartoon. They weren't featured as much in the comic books. In fact, they rarely showed up in the comic books. But in the cartoon, they were featured heavily, both in their, call it circus garb, and then in their executive garb where they ran the industries there. Watching that cartoon, did you identify with the cartoon itself, saying, like, hey, they're twins?
Oh no, that was a long-winded way of the previous anecdote I was trying to get to is that I didn't watch it with my brother, so I didn't think I'm looking for twins, and I guess I was so young, I just was like, oh, the Joes are the good guys. Those are the ones that I'm gonna actually relate to.
Okay.
Nowadays I have an appreciation. Cobra's so cool looking, but back then I was such a simplistic story narrative person,
Yeah, we've always said Cobra has the best branding. Cobra absolutely smokes G.I. Joe when it comes to branding. You're 100% right.
Yeah,
you're 100% right. Now they were known as the Corsican twins, because they were kind of Hasbro's way of getting the mafia into Cobra. That's what it
Uh-huh.
was. Like that last name being Paoli, which was introduced later, but they're like mafioso Italian. That's kind of the idea behind it. They ran legitimate business, being extensive enterprises, but then they were, criminals on the side. So that was an element of Tomax and Xamot that completely eluded me when I was a kid. I just thought they were funny looking dudes who looked like each other, that when you punched one, the other one hurt. And that was enough. That was absolutely enough for me.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have the action figure?
No, I never had any GI Joe action figures. I think I don't know if it was my parents guiding me or just my impulse, but action figures would be a little more on the cartoon side, like Nickelodeon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, well, your years probably would have, like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would have been a major action figure line at that time for you. Like the GI Joe action figure line would have actually been dormant at the time, or close to being dormant. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Before other things, it was Turtles and Power Rangers. I think Power Rangers was a little later, but those were like two driving impulses of my childhood want for toys.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I got to tell you, Power Rangers came out. I was in high school, I believe, and I just didn't get it. And I grew up with like Ultraman and stuff, and watching all that stuff on Channel 50. Power Rangers was not in my wheelhouse. I never understood the appeal, and to this day, I still don't. All due respect, we've had some of the Power Ranger writers on the show. All due respect to the Power Rangers fans, that's a thing that just it never connected with me. What about Power Rangers spoke to you?
I think it was some of it was iconography. Like I really liked the diamond, like the diamond shapes with like the colors and like the animal things on the side of the helmet, like Black Ranger's like a mastodon or whatever he was. I'm like, that is cool. And then man, I can't watch it now, but back then they would do the like 90210 sitcom bits at the diner where they like play like really loud music and the characters would fall over and spill food on the ground. It was like the most broad comedy possible, but to a 7-year-old, that is like,
oh, it's huge. Yeah.
Friends. Yes.
Yeah. It's the modern, it would have been at the time like the modern day, like Three Stooges kind of humor.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Doesn't hold up as well as Three Stooges, but that was definitely what they were going for.
True. I agree with that. So the really great thing about Tomax and Xamot, when they came out, they were released in a really, really distinctive packaging box with mirrored sides. Have you ever seen the box for this then? If you never had the toy, did you ever see the box for these guys?
No, I don't think so. No.
So it was called they were labeled the Crimson Guard Commanders, and instead of a traditional file, like a traditional carded 3 3/4 inch, GI Joe carded figure on the wall, it was a taller card, and it was a little more 3-dimensional. It was built up on the sides on an angle, and on the inside of it were the two places for the figures, and they were set up so that they would mirror each other. Their guns were actually in a cool mirror way. They were placed in the package so that they would complement each other like they were a mirror. Right below the gun, they came with a really cool grappling hook feature, and that kind of split it down the center. And on the sides of the packaging, the parts that were angled and like a little 3D'd out, that was reflective material. So it was like you were setting up mirrors on these guys to drive home the fact that they're twins, they're the same image. It's really cool packaging. It really stood out. It's they're not cheap on the aftermarket in good condition for sure. You can get a lot of carded Joes in various conditions and stuff like that, but I think this box, because it was bigger, even the ones that are still in the box took a lot more damage because they weren't they were harder to store, than a traditional smaller one. I recently, listeners, if you go to our Instagram, the Joe and Joe Instagram at Joe and Joe Pod, I put up a picture that I found at Christmas time, and it's the primary part of it is me holding up like a Bears t-shirt. But if you zoom in on it, you see that's the day I got my Tomax and Xamot box. So Tomax and Xamot are sitting on like next to a He-Man box in the background. Wow. Yeah, it's nice. It's really, really cool. It was such a great design package. It's one of those things where I forgot about for a long time. I knew they were always prominent in my play. They were always, because I was a huge fan of the cartoon like that, so I was a big fan of them. And I forgot how great that box was because I literally saw it once when I opened it and threw it away. Like that was it. I was playing with them. So when I go back and look at this box, it just brings back all the great memories. Like it just looks just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, do you still, as far as collecting go, do you still have any of your like childhood toys and stuff? Any of those old Turtle figures or Power Ranger figures?
No, I don't have anything old. I do collect a few pop toys. This is the Creep from Creep Show, just one nearby. But yeah.
Nice.
So I get the new stuff at Comic-Con. Oh yeah, I want to hear it too. Oh, everyone's favorite Adam Warlock. I don't want to go off brand of G.I. Joe, but
listen, G.I. Joe was published by Marvel for many, many years. For my money, getting back to Tomax and Xamot, circling back to the Joes. They're lawyers. They're evil lawyers. Really, let's get down to it.
Yeah, definitely. That's why they wear the suits. Don't they wear full suits and tie?
They do. In the cartoon. Yes, in the cartoon, because they'd run extensive enterprises. And long running joke on this is like they were very fond of jumping out of windows on the cartoon.
Yeah.
Like if you showed up at their offices and they were cornered in like literally their offices. It's like imagine when the feds, as we're recording this, when they shortly show up to Donald Trump's office to arrest him. Imagine him looking at the feds and going, "You're not going to get me," jumping out the window and bouncing from flagpole to flagpole to get to the street level. That's what Tomax and Xamot would do on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know how much a cartoon is sticking to the war theme, but it kind of belies the seriousness of the conflict. That
well, the thing with Cobra is that they're it was terrorists in that I guess lower T terrorist phrase, where back then you look at them more as a motley crew of criminals from around the world that unite to enrich themselves, right? So in that lower T terrorism, if we want to put a fine point on it, versus any kind of like actual state sponsored stuff that we deal with today. I think that's one of the reasons, one of the hurdles G.I. Joe has today in dealing with that. That's why they call them like they don't use that word anymore in the marketing. I forget exactly what they like, criminal organization or something like that.
Yeah.
But back in the day though, it was a terrorist organization determined to rule the world. That was the phrasing they used. And they were going to do it one backflip at a time. That's really what they were going to do, Jason.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's working. They're incredibly fit. There's no ending of the musculature. It's
those dudes are.
Yeah.
Those dudes are handsome as all hell too. That's the thing. Even Xamot. So Xamot was the one with the scar on his face. Obviously they're twins.
Right.
They are handsome as all get out. They are absolute fabulous guys. I wish they had put out I know a lot of people have done customs of them. 3 3/4 inch version of them in the business suits. I think that would have been a whole lot of fun. I think that would have sold. Okay, realistic, probably not a ton, but I think that would have been a nice element in the toys to do that. Like they did they did a gung ho in his Marine outfit where it's his Marine dress blues. That would have been fun to see Tomax and Xamot dressed in their business outfits.
Yeah, I think that would have captured what they were, which is like these side character businessmen.
Yeah, evil lawyers,
Yeah.
They were they were heavily featured in the IDW Cobra series called Cobra, where Chuckles was the lead G.I. Joe guy, and Tomax and Xamot were kind of the lead Cobras there. There was Chuckles undercover with Cobra for a long time. Listeners, if you've never read that for some reason, if you just avoided the comics or avoided the IDW stuff, or you only stuck to the Larry Hama universe, etc., I cannot recommend Cobra enough. Even if you don't want to dip into the regular G.I. Joe stuff or what have you, Cobra, because it was called Cobra, G.I. Joe was like Cobra. Cobra is so well done. It's really standalone. I think occasionally it would cross over with the main title, but it's pretty much Chuckles' adventure doing undercover work, and Tomax and Xamot are the main guys that he encounters and deals with. It's so good, so well done. Chris Gage, Mike Costa were the writers, I think, for most of it. Highly recommended. Yeah, it's real, and it took it very seriously. That's the thing. It wasn't. A lot of the IDW stuff took it a little more seriously, but Cobra really took it in a like, okay, let's just deal with everyone in kind of a more real world way. And what would these two dudes be like? You know, I don't. They might have given him a slight psychic thing, but you know, it wasn't played up. You know, it wasn't like roadblock punching him and 30 yards away. You know, Tomax falling off a scaffolding. You know, that kind of a thing. Now, have you ever had? The answer, I imagine, is going to be no. But can you ever remember a moment with your twin, Marcus, where there was some kind of like, you know, Marcus got in a car accident this morning and you woke up like, oh my God, I feel terrible, kind of a thing?
No, the closest thing I could think of is like if someone's going to ask Marcus a question, I can answer it for him because I've, you know, dealt with him for so long. But, you know, just that's more of like a learned behavior thing that comes.
Well, that's still right in the Tomax Xamot vein, man. That's right there for you. They were literally finishing each other's sentences.
Yeah, we could beat Tomax and Xamot, but we're not going to wear matching suits. That's definitely not going to happen.
Why not?
But yeah,
you should. That should be your Halloween. No, twin. So he does look like you, right? Like you guys do resemble each other, right?
Yeah. I mean, so sometimes I have a hard time seeing it, but other people, it's like I'll just be mostly him. They'll be approached and be like, back when we were in college or whatever, it was like, yeah, that class was great, right? And he'd just be like, a lot of times he wouldn't even answer. He'd just like turn around and walk away.
You went to college together as well?
Yes.
Oh man, did you parent trap anyone?
Oh no, unfortunately no.
You never like went to one of your teachers as disguised as the other one and like took a test for him or something like that?
No, I don't know if it was we were too lazy for such schemes, or if we were too polite. I don't know.
Probably polite. You probably were just a kind, polite person. I would have been all about the scheme. I would have been hatching things and been like, "Hey, Twin Joe, what prank can we pull on someone today?" You know? Yeah. I don't think I would have had very many friends if I was a twin. Do you have any other twin friends? Like, are you part of a twin community?
No, that never really came together. I've known a few twins in my life, but not like a ton. And never quite came together. No real reason other than happenstance or whatever. But yeah.
So, Jason, does your twindom, does that play a lot into your comedy? You said you've done some twin bits before. Yeah,
that's I think a big part of stand-up comedy, because that was, you know, when I was writing jokes, and you know, they tell you when you write jokes, pull from your real life and then amplify the humor. So I would get these twin questions. It's just such a weird outlier in life. It's like the day-to-day questions you get are usually not like, do you have psychic powers? Or, you know, use your inner twin locator system to tell me where your brother is right now.
You would be if you hung out with more G.I. Joe fans. I promise you that. If you hung out with more G.I. Joe fans, you absolutely would get that question at least once a day.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's the question I get hurt. Yeah, like we're talking about. If you get hurt, does your twin feel your pain? I get that question, you know, all the time. Sometimes I'll even say no, and they'll be like, "Are you sure?
Can we test this theory?" There's been so much written about it. Yeah, fiction. Yeah, but so much fiction written about it. It must come from a true place. Yeah, I get it.
Alexander Ma novel must have some.
Oh, absolutely. It's like vampire lore, really, is what it is. Over time, there's so much content written about like quote psychic twins that 100 years from now people will be like, well, yeah, that's how vampires work. That's how twins work. You know, it's true. People didn't make it up. How long have you been doing stand up?
It's been 5 years. I mean, there's some off and on spells.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're not on stage all the time, of course, and you're also an actor. You do a lot of improv and stuff. You work around L.A. You're actually,
Yes.
listeners, as you hear this, Jason's getting ready to be in the Hollywood Fringe Festival, which is one of the great live theater festivals out here. Absolutely great. It's a lot of different productions in a lot of different venues around Hollywood for about 10 days or 2 weeks or so in June. And you have a few sets. You're part of a few different sets. So if you're in LA and you want to see Jason, go to like the Hollywood Fringe and look for it. Now you're playing with your improv troupe called Feel Your Feet.
Yes, where it's a musical improv troupe. We have a variety. We have whatever it is, 8 shows on the Fringe, and we have 3 different show formats. So if you come, whenever you come, it'll be brand new, trying new things. So it'll be exciting.
Musical improv is fun. I like musical improv. I think it's a skill that when you see it executed well, it's impressive. You know what I'm saying? Can you describe that process a little bit?
Sure. I mean, obviously, there's no wrong answers in improv, blah blah blah. But the good rule of thumb for singing is like you have a suggestion or a cue to sing something, and then so you think of the word you want to say, and then the goal. It's gonna be hard because you're doing it quickly, but think of a word that rhymes with it that comes before, because the audience is gonna punch when the second line has the clever reference. Like you want me to talk about cheese, and then I'm rhyming with Swiss. I once met a beautiful Miss Swiss, and that's when then you'll get a bigger laugh that way. So that's try to do that.
Yeah, it's like the instinct is to hit. I think the instinct of most people is to get the word that they think is the funny word, get that out of their mouth first, right? Because like whatever the scenario is, yeah, Swiss is, let's just say we all agree it would be universally funny to say the word Swiss. But in music improv, you hide it to be the punchline. So then your brain has to really quickly come up with a series of words just to get to that word Swiss, because that word Swiss is the funny bit for people to laugh at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, it's a really talented equation. So and let's not even get to mentioning the musical directors. Their ability to keep up with and do all the different styles of music involved with music improv is wild. Do you guys work with the same director most of the time, or is it whoever's working MD that night at the stage?
No. We've been fortunate this show at least to have a set keyboardist. He's been rehearsing with us, so he's had time to prepare things for spots as well as being able to sort of go on the fly. So hopefully, it's been a lot more. It's been comfortable to have that sort of security every
great
night.
That's really great. Yeah, that's the thing. When you work with a troupe like that, you develop rhythms, beats, shorthand with each other, and then when you get your whether it's music improv or regular improv, when you get your suggestions, yes, the subject is fresh, but the secret is that you guys know, he's got a style that Jason's got a style that he does this really well. So yes, he's talking about Starbucks today, but I know you as a performer so well, so you can play to each other's strengths and make each other look good. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I don't consciously take the time to think, that I've got to cater this to my scene partner, but I think it's like, in a weird way, it's like just regular conversation. It's just like you follow it, and the patterns are built in. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know the games, the rhythms as a troupe. And I know people come in and out, but how long as like a troupe has Feel Your Feet been together?
Oh, we're relatively quick. It's since the new year, since January.
Okay.
So we a little intensive with the rehearsals to make it go, but like we've lucked into a pretty friendly group of people. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And what do you prefer to do most? Like improv performance or stand up? Because it's quite different. Those just two skills are, it's literally group, trusting your partners, your scene partners, giving yourself up to the group, and then it is stand up. You alone, you're out there. You survive and thrive on your own merit.
Yeah, I feel like when stand-up goes well, I feel like, I only want to do stand-up. I feel like I've been doing improv a lot longer just because whatever, I guess maybe there's more classes for it or whatever. So I feel a little more comfortable with that. So really there's positives both ways for now, but I think I'd like to get really good at stand up and do that more full time. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So listeners, if you want to follow Jason more online, you can find him on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok at Jason Luna, Luna. It's at Jason Luna 1 verse 100. So 1 vs 100. Isn't that a game show or something? The 1v100?
So this is a funny anecdote to wrap up the show on. 2008, I appeared on the game show 1 versus 100 on NBC, and I won the $1 million prize at 21 years old.
No way! Did you really? Holy cow!
Totally.
Wow! No wonder you have so much time to work on your stand-up craft. You're a $1 million winner. Wow! Tell that story. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, so yeah, I was in college and I was doing some trivia stuff. So randomly, I was in Irvine, and all the way, some LA producer found me, had us all audition, and I got on this game show. I guess I had a good interview or whatever. And 1 versus 100 was, the gimmick was 3 multiple choice questions. You're answering at the same time. 100 people are standing on the other side of the stage, and they're answering. And you only win money when they get questions wrong. So I answered enough questions to get everyone to get a question wrong. And then I won $1 million on television. I still don't believe it sometimes. It's so surreal and far away in my memory, but totally happened. Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. So you were the guy, you were the player, not one of the 100.
Yeah, I was the one. I was the contestant that was featured. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I've won money on game shows. You blow it away. That's crazy.
Yeah.
First of all, did your twin brother demand half?
No, he did not. He did not ask for any of it. He's very, again, this whole polite thing. I don't know. I don't know.
Too much. How long did it take for them to pay you out?
It was a 3-month delivery of check, and then they made me pay out my own taxes off of that. But yes, I got 3 months. Yeah.
Fabulous. Absolutely. I mean, what did you do? Right. What was your first, I'm going to buy something stupid, but not, crippling debt stupid. Like, what did you do? How did you treat yourself for achieving that?
So I was in college at the time, so I didn't go as crazy as some people might have, but I got a Mini Cooper. That's the car everyone dreams of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
that was the car of the time. I remember.
God, and then after that, it was mostly like my parents were paying for school before that, so I started paying for school, and then I went to film school, and then I was moving different places for that, so it quickly became less of a, let's buy fun stuff, and like, letting me
an investment in yourself. Yeah, well, that's great. Though, your college is pay for college. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What definitely. A wild. That's wild. And did you get like, how was the reception at school when you went back to college? You can't tell people that you won. Did you quietly tell people that you won, or were you really good about keeping it quiet?
Yeah, I was good about keeping it quiet. I didn't tell anyone. My parents said they figured it out without me telling them, because they said I seemed too excited.
She walked in with a bunch of bling on.
Yeah. The gold cape was a bit much, but yeah. But no, it's so funny. It's like, you think like, I'm famous now, the world's gonna change, but it's like, it was so selective. People who would know and who wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. It's like, watch TV in this age is so relatively small, and they can't. The worst thing is they canceled the show. Like, I guess I'm why, but they canceled the show 3 months after or something.
You cost them $1 million.
So everyone remembers Ken Jennings and the Millionaire Guys, but like, I've been trying to tell people I'm a famous game show person for whatever it is, 15 years now, but it's not.
Now, I absolutely remember the show, but the rules of it, I don't really recall. In order to win the $1 million, did you have to knock out all the 100? Like, how did it work? Because, sometimes you could quote win, but you only won 50 grand or 250 grand. How did you get to the actual million?
So every question they say, like, who got it wrong? And then let's say you have 100 people and 10 got it wrong. Those 10 are off the board, and there's the rungs are numbered. So like 10 is 5. It's different, but 5,000, 10,000, blah, blah, blah. So you go back in every question and then knock people out as it goes. So on the 8th question, or whatever it was, there's 15 people left. And I still remember the question was, according to Hallmark, what's the most popular day for greeting cards? Is it Valentine's Day, Christmas, or Mother's Day?
I would guess Mother's Day.
You would have been wrong. It was Christmas, and I won. And the best part, there's lots of best parts of this, but
so like all the remaining 15 or 18 people, they all did not guess Christmas.
Yeah. So it was funny because I answered and there was like a pause for production or whatever, and people on the audience were like flagging me down, like, no, you got it wrong. It's Mother's Day. And then I got it right. So that was, yeah.
I mean, you know what's so funny? That this kind of thinking plagued me too. You know, the few game shows I've done too, where initially I'm like, well, maybe it's not as obvious, but then if you just do the thinking about it, Mother's Day, self-selection, yes, everyone quote has a mother, but not everyone has an active mother. Right?
Yeah.
Christmas, everyone celebrates, not everyone celebrates Christmas, but people who are of that religion or American and not even religious, just from a societal standpoint, you don't need to have a mother in order to send a card for Christmas. You can send a card. Yeah, that makes total sense.
And I had a boss at the time at an internship, and she was explaining to me that Christmas is the only holiday that buys the corporate card buyout, like mass. So it's like I'm not even close. Apparently, I don't know.
That makes complete sense. And none was it 18 or 15? What did you say? How many people you beat on that one?
It was 15.
Oh, that's so good, man. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's
the only other thing about the episode. It's just funny to mention because it was Battle of the Sexes. So first they had a woman against all men, and then they had me go against all women.
Oh no. That's not fair. You must have looked terrible. No offense, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not putting you in a position to win. Like, the public opinion win, you know?
Yeah. I mean, at least they didn't encourage me to say any casual misogyny or anything.
What's the best way to pick up a chick? Is it A, talk about her looks? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So anyone in college give you the, hey, I saw you last night kind of treatment?
No, not really. Almost 100% of the time, if anyone found out, I would have to tell them. Like, I don't know if it's just like the show was really unpopular amongst my demographic or what, but it's like, yeah.
You just lean over. I'll pick up dinner. Oh, no, you don't have to. Oh, no, and let me tell you why.
Yeah. See,
I just cashed my $1 million check.
I need more $1 million moves. Maybe it's too late now, but back then I definitely needed more.
That's crazy. That's wild, man. What a crazy story. Thanks for sharing that with us. I love it. I absolutely love it. So Jason Luna, 1 versus 100. Absolutely. Do you talk about that in your stand-up? Do you have bits on that?
No, I'm trying to come up with one. I think because when I was young and just getting started, some people would come up to me and they'd be like, oh, you talk about winning that much money, you're just rubbing it in our faces because we don't have as much as you and stuff. So I started feeling guilt about like casually mentioning it. But I think well, now
I have absolutely no idea how true this is, but now you just go, and I blew it, and now, and 15 years later, here I am telling jokes in a coffee shop.
Pretty much. Yes. Thanks for mentioning. Yeah.
Hey, listen, just if you ever need a writer, there I am. I'm right there for you, Jason.
Absolutely.
I'll just be your silent writer in the back room. I'll be in the green
Hopefully
room.
the rates are negotiable.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, totally negotiable. Decaf, maybe a mocha.
Okay, good.
It totally works for me. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being on Joe today. I think you're going to crush it at the Hollywood Fringe Festival. Listeners, if you're hearing this, when you're hearing this live for the first time, Fringe is next week, or you're in the middle of Fringe. So if you're listening, if you're in the LA area and you want to check Jason out, go to the Fringe Festival website and look for Feel Your Feet musical improv group. You're going to have a great time. Say hi to Jason Forrest from Joe on Joe. Jason, any last twin thoughts on Tomax and Xamot? You are literally, I mean, the way you described your twindom is really mirrored with you and Marcus and Tomax and Xamot. Would you consider yourself more a Tomax or a Xamot? Tomax being the guy without the scar, and Xamot being like the bad boy with the scar.
It's kind of funny because me and my twin Marcus are both Tomaxes, but between the two of us, I am definitely the Xamot. I may not be a bad boy to some, but compared to him, I sort of my evil sort of elevates a little. So I think I'm, and I like that chip on the shoulder of like I have a little scar on my face,
Yeah. Maybe Marcus and Jason need to be the G.I. Joe equivalent of the twins. Maybe we need to come up with G.I. Joe twins, and it's Marcus and Jason Luna.
Yeah, I think totally. That's a brand we could definitely use.
I think we need to work on this. Jason, absolutely fabulous having you on the show today, man. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Well, now we all know a lot more about Tomax, Xamot, and 1 versus 100. And Joeing is half the battle.